You know, when you look back through history, there are some people who just seem larger than life, almost like myths. But the thing is, behind every single one of those legends is a real person who, at some point, faced a choice that changed absolutely everything. And today, we're talking about one of the biggest, Mahatma Gandhi.
I mean, seriously, when Albert Einstein says something like that about you, you know your impact was off the charts. So that's the real question, isn't it? How did a shy, kind of unassuming lawyer become this incredible force for change? A person so monumental that even Einstein was just in awe.
Well, to really understand the man he became, we're not going to start at his birth in India. Nope. We're starting with the event that really lit the fuse, his time as a young lawyer in South Africa. Okay, just try to picture this. He's 23 years old, a world away from home. He has a perfectly valid first-class ticket, but he's thrown off the train anyway for no other reason than the color of his skin. He spent that whole long night shivering in a cold, dark station, wrestling with this one huge question. Do I give up and go back to India, or do I stay and fight for my rights? And think about the sheer scale of that decision he made. He was only supposed to be in South Africa for a single, one-year legal case, a simple job. But that night, on that train platform, it changed his entire path. 1 year turned into 21 years. A job became a mission. And he didn't just decide to fight for himself. That's the key. He took that personal humiliation and turned it into fuel for collective action. He realized, wait a minute, my problem is everyone's problem. And so he founded the Natal Indian Congress, and for the first time began to organize the scattered Indian community into a real unified political force. So this experience didn't just teach him to resist. It actually inspired him to invent a whole new way to resist. This is where he starts to forge the idea that would become the golden thread running through his entire life. And that idea was Satyagraha. Now, we often translate it as nonviolent resistance, but it's so much more than that. It's an active philosophy, not a passive one. It means soul force or truth force. The goal isn't just to beat your opponent, it's to awaken their conscience, to conquer their hate with a love so strong it actually transforms them. And believe me, that takes unbelievable moral strength. And it turns out, he was a natural at this. He started the Indian Opinion newspaper, but it was way more than just a paper. It was a platform. It was the place where he could share these new ideas, hash out the principles of Satyagraha with the community, and give a voice to a whole group of people who had been silenced. So in 1915, at 45 years old, Gandhi finally returns to India, and he brings Satyagraha with him, ready to put his philosophy to the ultimate test, on the biggest stage imaginable, the fight for India's independence from the entire British Empire. Just let that number sink in for a second. 400 kilometers. That's nearly 250 miles. This wasn't just some protest. This was an epic journey, a pilgrimage of defiance, all on foot, and it captured the imagination of not just a nation, but the whole world. And the strategy here was just brilliant. See, the British had a total monopoly on salt, something every single person needed to live, and they taxed it heavily. By marching to the sea to make his own illegal salt, Gandhi was breaking a law that was simple, symbolic, and deeply unfair to every Indian. It was the perfect act of civil disobedience. After the march, Gandhi was arrested, but the movement exploded. And at the Darsana salt works, the world saw Satyagraha in its rawest form. This account from an American journalist, it's just chilling. It shows the incredible courage of the protesters. They never fought back. And that contrast, their moral strength versus the brutal violence of the authorities, was broadcast to the world. And the British Empire started to look like a bully. All right, this brings us to the final and honestly the most complicated part of his story. After decades of struggle, independence was finally within reach. But it was going to come at a price that would absolutely break Gandhi's heart. See, his dream, his entire goal, was for one independent, united India, a nation where Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, everyone could live together. But the political reality was messy. There were powerful forces, both British and Indian, pushing hard for a country divided along religious lines. And he fought against that idea with everything he had. This timeline just lays out how quickly the victory turned into a complete tragedy. August 1947, India is free, but it's torn in two. Horrific violence explodes as millions are displaced. And Gandhi, now in his late 70s, literally walks into the riots and starts fasting, trying to will the violence to stop. And then, just 5 months into that new freedom,
he's killed. And here is the devastating irony of it all. The man who lived his life by the creed of nonviolence was murdered. The man who freed India was assassinated by one of his own countrymen, a Hindu nationalist who thought Gandhi was being too protective of Muslims. He had won independence, but he lost the peaceful, united nation he had fought for his entire life.
But here's the thing. You can kill a person. You can't kill an idea. And Gandhi's death, it wasn't the end of his story, not even close. In a way, it was just the beginning of his ideas' journey around the world. His philosophy just echoed across continents. In the United States, it became the literal blueprint for the civil rights movement. Back in South Africa, where it all started, it helped fuel the fight against apartheid. From the Dalai Lama to Cesar Chavez, leaders of the biggest movements of the 20th century looked at what he did and saw a powerful path to justice.
And this quote from Martin Luther King Jr., it just hits the nail on the head. For Dr. King, Satyagraha wasn't just some nice, moral idea. It was a practical, strategic toolbox for how to create real change when all the odds are stacked against you.
And the world has absolutely recognized this impact. Get this, he was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize 5 separate times, but he never actually won. It's an omission the committee itself later said they deeply regretted. But really, prizes don't define a legacy like his. His place in history was already secure. Which kind of brings us full circle, right back to the beginning. It all started from one humiliating moment in a cold train station. From there, one man forged an idea of truth force, of overcoming hate with something stronger. He proved that an idea, if you have the courage to live it, can be more powerful than any army, any empire. And it really makes you wonder, what's the power of our own convictions today?